Welcome to Wealth of Words, where we crack open some seriously insightful books and, maybe learn a thing or two along the way. I'm Richard, your co-host for this literary adventure.
And I'm Isabella, delighted to be joining you, Richard, on this journey of knowledge and exploration.
Settle in, everyone. It's going to be a fascinating ride.
Okay.
Today, we're diving deep into a collection of writings that have become something of a business Bible. Jeff Bezos' shareholder letters, those letters that come with your stock certificates? Well, these are not your average corporate speak.
Definitely not. These letters, spanning over 2 decades, offer an incredibly insightful glimpse into the mind of one of the most influential figures in modern business. We're talking strategic insights, leadership principles, and that famous Bezosian long-term vision, all laid out in black and white.
And that's what makes these letters so much more than just dry financial reports, right? It's like getting a masterclass in building and scaling a business. There are nuggets of wisdom in here about innovation, customer obsession, and leadership, but they're woven into these fascinating stories about Amazon's journey.
Yeah, we'll be unpacking some of those nuggets for you today. Think of it like a treasure hunt, but instead of gold doubloons, we're searching for actionable strategies and insights that you can apply to your own work and life.
Because let's be honest, who wouldn't want to tap into the mind of the guy who built an empire, right?
Absolutely. And we'll try to do it in a way that's engaging and relatable because we know you're busy people and we value your time.
Exactly. So grab your metaphorical highlighter, get comfy, and let's dive into the world of Amazon and the day one philosophy.
Day one, that's a good place to start. It's the heartbeat of Bezos' philosophy, the idea that every day at Amazon should feel like the very first day of the company.
Okay, that sounds catchy, but what does it actually mean for those of us who aren't running multi-billion-dollar companies?
Well, think about it this way. On day one, you have that fire in your belly. You're excited, you're hungry, and you're laser focused on building something great. That sense of urgency, that willingness to learn and adapt, that's the essence of day one.
So it's about fighting complacency, right? Not resting on your laurels or getting bogged down in bureaucracy just because you've had some success.
Exactly. Bezos calls the opposite day two thinking, and he sees it as a slippery slope toward stagnation and irrelevance.
And he actually gives a pretty vivid picture of what day two looks like in one of his letters. He says it starts with companies losing focus on the customer and becoming more inward-looking.
And that's when bureaucracy creeps in, decision-making slows down, and the company starts to prioritize process over results.
And eventually you end up in this slow decline, kind of like a dying star, right? The energy fades, the innovation stops, and the company becomes a shadow of its former self.
It's a stark warning, but it's incredibly powerful. And it's not just relevant for giant corporations. Think about your own career, your own projects, your own life even. How would your approach change if you tackled every challenge with that fresh day one energy?
I think it would change a lot. Imagine approaching every day with that same level of enthusiasm and drive you had on your first day at a new job. You'd probably be more willing to take risks, more open to feedback, and more focused on delivering real value.
That's the beauty of day one thinking. It's a mindset that can be applied to any aspect of your life. It's about embracing that beginner's mindset, that willingness to learn and adapt no matter where you are in your journey.
So how do we cultivate that day one mindset, especially when we're not surrounded by the same energy and excitement of a startup environment? Bezos actually gives some practical tips in his letters.
He does. He talks about resisting proxies, which are basically those layers of abstraction that creep in as companies grow. For example, instead of relying on reports and metrics, get out there and talk to customers directly. See the problems firsthand.
It's like getting your hands dirty,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Staying connected to the front lines instead of getting caught up in the ivory tower of management.
Exactly. He also talks about embracing external trends and being willing to cannibalize your own business.
Wait, cannibalizing your own business. That sounds a little intense.
It does, but it's about recognizing that the world is constantly changing, and if you're not willing to disrupt yourself, someone else will.
He uses the example of the Kindle, right? Amazon was already a dominant player in the book-selling world, but they were willing to embrace this new technology, even if it meant potentially hurting their existing business.
And look at what happened. The Kindle revolutionized the way people read, and it became a massive success for Amazon.
It's a bold move, but it speaks to that day one mentality of constantly challenging the status quo and embracing change.
Absolutely. So as you go about your day today, ask yourself, what would I do differently if this were my day one? What risks would I take? What conversations would I have? What kind of energy would I bring to my work?
It's a powerful question, and I think it's a great way to tap into that day one mindset and bring a little bit of that Bezosian magic into your own life.
Now let's move on to another key theme that Bezos emphasizes in his letters, and that's relentless customer obsession. And for Bezos, this isn't just some empty corporate slogan. It's the foundation of everything Amazon does.
And it's not just about providing good customer service, right? It's about a deeper understanding of what customers truly want and need, even if they don't know it themselves.
Exactly. And one of the most striking examples of this is Amazon's decision to allow negative product reviews on their website. Can you imagine the board meeting where that idea was pitched?
I can only imagine the pushback. It seems counterintuitive, right? Why would you let people publicly bash the products you're selling?
But Bezos understood that building trust with customers meant being transparent, even if it meant showcasing some negative feedback.
And it was a brilliant move, honestly. It gave customers this sense of confidence that they were getting the full picture, not just a carefully curated marketing pitch.
And it paid off big time. It positioned Amazon as a place where you could get honest opinions and make informed decisions. It built this incredible sense of authenticity and customer loyalty.
Think about it from your own perspective as a customer. Have you ever been hesitant to buy something online because the reviews seem too good to be true?
I know I have. But when you see a mix of positive and negative reviews, it actually makes you more likely to trust the overall assessment. It feels more real, more human.
Absolutely. And that's something a lot of companies miss, I think. They get so caught up in presenting this perfect image that they forget about the power of authenticity and transparency.
And that brings us to another interesting point about customer obsession. It's not just about reacting to customer feedback, it's about anticipating their needs and wants before they even articulate them.
It's about being one step ahead, right? Like,
Mhm.
how can we create products and services that solve problems customers didn't even know they had?
Bezos talks about this in the context of invention. He says that real invention comes from deeply understanding customer needs and then working backwards from there.
And this is where that long-term vision comes into play, right?
Yeah.
You're not just focused on meeting today's needs. You're thinking about what customers will want 5, 10, even 20 years from now.
Exactly. And that's a powerful concept. It requires a different kind of thinking, a willingness to look beyond the immediate horizon and imagine a future that doesn't yet exist.
It's like we're laying the groundwork for innovations that haven't even dreamt of yet.
Precisely. And that's the kind of forward thinking that has propelled Amazon to the forefront of so many industries.
So we've talked about day one and customer obsession, but there's another key ingredient in the Bezos recipe for success that I find fascinating, his focus on playing the long game.
Absolutely. Bezos is notorious for his long-term vision. He's willing to delay gratification to make investments that might not pay off for years, even decades, all in pursuit of building something truly transformative.
And that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of companies, especially in today's world where everyone is obsessed with quarterly earnings and instant results.
It is. But Bezos makes a compelling case for why this long-term approach is so critical. He argues that in the long run, it's the companies that are willing to plant seeds today, even if they won't see the fruit for years, that ultimately win.
He uses a great analogy in one of his letters, comparing Amazon to a gardener. He says, a gardener knows that it takes time for seeds to germinate and grow into plants. They don't expect to see results overnight, but they keep tending to the garden, knowing that with patience and care, their efforts will eventually bear fruit.
It's a beautiful analogy, and it perfectly captures the essence of Bezos' approach. And you can see this philosophy reflected in some of Amazon's biggest bets, like the development of Amazon Web Services, AWS.
AWS, their cloud computing platform, right?
Yeah.
I remember when that first launched, a lot of people were scratching their heads. It seemed like such a departure from their core e-commerce business.
It did. And it was a massive investment. Billions of dollars poured into building this infrastructure that at the time didn't have a clear path to profitability.
But Bezos had this vision that cloud computing would become the backbone of the internet, and he was willing to bet big on it.
And he was right, wasn't he? AWS is now a behemoth generating billions in revenue for Amazon and powering a huge chunk of the internet.
It's amazing to think about how different things would be if Bezos had caved to short-term pressures and scrapped the project.
It really underscores the power of having a clear vision for the future and the courage to stick with it, even when faced with skepticism and uncertainty.
So how can we apply this long game mentality to our own lives, even if we're not trying to build the next Amazon?
Well, I think it starts with identifying those areas in your life where you might be prioritizing quick wins over sustained growth.
You know, like hitting the snooze button instead of going for that morning run.
Exactly. Or
Okay.
maybe it's taking on that extra freelance project instead of investing time in developing a new skill that could pay off in the long run.
Or maybe it's choosing the easy path in your career
Hmm.
instead of pursuing that passion project that might be riskier but ultimately more fulfilling.
Those are all great examples. It's about recognizing those moments where we're tempted to take the shortcut, the path of least resistance, and asking ourselves, is this decision aligned with my long-term goals? Or am I sacrificing future success for a little bit of comfort or convenience today?
It's a tough question, but it's a necessary one if we want to achieve our full potential. And it's a question that Bezos seems to ask himself constantly.
He does. And it's that relentless focus on the long game combined with his day one mentality and customer obsession that has allowed him to build one of the most successful companies in history.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Bezos' big picture vision and his approach to leadership. Well, let's get a little more granular. How does this guy actually make decisions? What's his secret sauce?
Well, one of the things that sets Bezos apart is his unique approach to data. He's a huge believer in data-driven decision making. I mean, Amazon is practically synonymous with data analysis at this point.
Right. But here's the thing that I find so interesting. Bezos also recognizes the limitations of data. He understands that data can tell you what's happened in the past, but it can't always predict the future.
Absolutely. Especially when you're trying to innovate and disrupt a currents, you're often venturing into uncharted territory. There's no historical data to guide you.
And that's where Bezos' famous quote comes in. Data tells us the current state, but judgment predicts the future state.
Exactly. He understands that while data is crucial for informing decisions, it can't replace human intuition, creativity, and good old-fashioned gut instinct.
And that's where Amazon's willingness to experiment really shines through. I mean, think about Prime again. It was a gamble, a wild idea at the time. Who knew if people would actually pay for faster shipping and some streaming content?
Or the Kindle. Launching an e-reader when everyone was still in love with the feel of a physical book, that took guts.
But these experiments, these leaps of faith, paid off in a big way. And it speaks to a larger point about innovation that I think is so important.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to be willing to try things that might not work, to embrace the possibility of failure as part of the process.
Couldn't agree more. And Bezos actually talks about the importance of embracing failure in one of his letters. He says, if you're not failing, you're probably not experimenting enough. And if you're not experimenting, you're not going to be innovating.
It's a powerful message, and it's something I think a lot of us could stand to hear. We're so conditioned to avoid failure to play it safe that we often miss out on opportunities for growth and breakthrough.
It's about reframing our relationship with failure, seeing it not as a setback, but as a learning opportunity, a stepping stone on the path to success.
So instead of asking, what if I fail, maybe we should be asking, what can I learn from this experiment, even if it doesn't go as planned?
Exactly. Because often the greatest lessons come from our mistakes, from those moments where we stumble and have to pick ourselves up and try again.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about another area where Amazon excels, scaling through innovation. And I think it's important to note that we're not just talking about inventing cool gadgets here.
No, it's much broader than that. Bezos saw innovation as a way to improve the customer experience and drive efficiency at the same time. It's about constantly looking for ways to do more with less, to streamline processes, and to find creative solutions to everyday problems.
Can you give us an example of what this looks like in action?
Think about something like free Super Saver shipping. On the surface, it seemed like a costly move, giving away free shipping. But it actually led to higher order volumes, which in turn allowed Amazon to optimize its logistics and lower costs in the long run.
It's like that classic saying, spend money to make money, but with the Bezosian twist.
Right. And it's a great example of how innovation isn't just about coming up with flashy new ideas. It's also about finding ways to make existing processes better, faster, and more efficient.
So how can we apply this to our own lives? I mean, I'm not exactly running a global logistics empire over here.
Well, it starts with that mindset of continuous improvement. Ask yourself, what are the things I do on a daily basis that could be done better, faster, or more efficiently?
Maybe it's finding a new way to organize your inbox, automating a repetitive task, or coming up with a creative solution to a problem that's been bugging you.
Those are all great examples. It's about challenging the status quo, looking for those small but meaningful opportunities to innovate in your own sphere.
And sometimes those small innovations can lead to big results. It's like that butterfly effect. A small change in one area can ripple outwards and create a cascade of positive effects.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of innovation. It has the power to transform not just businesses, but entire industries, even the world.
So as we continue to explore Bezos's leadership philosophy, I'm curious about his approach to building teams. I mean, you can't build an empire alone, right? It takes a talented team of people working together towards a common goal.
Absolutely. And Bezos is very deliberate in his approach to hiring. He's not just looking for people with the right skills and experience. He's looking for people who embody the Amazon values, who are passionate about the mission, and who have the potential to raise the bar for everyone around them.
He calls it the raising the bar principle, right? The
Yeah.
idea that every new hire should raise the average level of talent within the company.
Exactly. And it's not just about hiring superstars, it's about finding people who are humble, who are hungry to learn, and who are willing to collaborate and share their knowledge with others.
It makes you think about your own team dynamics, doesn't it? What qualities do you value most in your colleagues? Are you contributing to a culture of excellence, or are you just coasting along?
Those are great questions for anyone to reflect on, regardless of their position or industry, because ultimately we're all part of teams, whether it's at work in our personal lives or in our communities. And the collective success of those teams often hinges on the individual contributions and standards we set.
And speaking of standards, let's talk about one of Bezos's favorite financial metrics, free cash flow. He's practically obsessed with it, right?
He is, and for good reason. Bezos sees free cash flow as the ultimate measure of a company's long-term health. It's the cash a company has left over after paying for its operating expenses and capital expenditures.
So basically, it's the money you have available to reinvest in growth, pay down debt, or return to shareholders. It's like your financial wiggle room.
Exactly. And Amazon has always been incredibly efficient at generating free cash flow.
How do they do that? What's their secret?
Well, part of it comes down to their inventory management and supplier relationships. They've mastered the art of turning inventory quickly and negotiating favorable terms with suppliers. This means they often collect cash from customers before they have to pay their suppliers, which gives them a significant cash flow advantage.
That's smart. Like having a constant stream of cash coming in, which gives you a lot of flexibility to reinvest in growth opportunities.
Exactly. And it allows them to play the long game, to make those big bets on future innovations without having to worry about short-term financial pressures.
So what's the lesson here for the average listener? Most of us aren't managing billion-dollar supply chains.
It's about thinking about cash flow in your own life. Are you managing your finances in a way that maximizes your free cash flow? Are you creating opportunities to reinvest in your own growth, whether that's through education, new skills, or even just paying down debt to free up more cash in the future?
It's a financial mindset shift, really. Moving away from just focusing on income and expenses to thinking about how you can optimize your cash flow for long-term financial health.
Exactly. And it's a lesson that can be applied to businesses of all sizes, from solopreneurs to global corporations. It's about being mindful of how you're using your cash, making sure it's working for you, and creating opportunities for long-term growth and sustainability.
It's like treating your personal finances like a business, right? Investing in your own growth and making sure you have a solid financial foundation to build upon.
Exactly. And it's something that Bezos has clearly mastered both in his business and one would assume in his personal life as well.
So as we wrap up our look at Bezos's shareholder letters, I'm wondering, what are the key takeaways you think listeners should walk away with? What are those nuggets of wisdom that we can all apply to our own lives, regardless of whether we're running a Fortune 500 company or just trying to navigate our own personal journeys?
That's a great question, Richard. And I think there are a few big ones that stand out. First and foremost, that long-term thinking is absolutely crucial. Whether you're building a business, planning your career, or just thinking about your own personal goals, having a clear vision for the future and making decisions that align with that vision is paramount.
It's about playing the long game, like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
not getting distracted by those shiny short-term gains, but staying focused on the bigger picture, even when it's hard.
Absolutely. And that ties into the second big takeaway, customer focus. Bezos' obsession with the customer is legendary, and for good reason. It's not just about providing good customer service. It's about deeply understanding your customers' needs, anticipating their wants, and consistently exceeding their expectations.
And that applies whether you're selling products, services, or even just ideas.
Yeah.
It's about building relationships, not just transactions, and recognizing that happy customers are your best advocates, your most valuable asset.
Couldn't agree more. And finally, I think the third big takeaway is the importance of relentless innovation. Bezos never stopped pushing the boundaries, never settled for the status quo. He embraced experimentation, challenged assumptions, and constantly sought ways to improve and disrupt.
It's that day one mindset we talked about at the beginning, that constant hunger to learn, to grow, to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, even when it feels uncomfortable.
And that, I think, is the most inspiring takeaway from Bezos's letters. It's a reminder that no matter how big or successful you become, you should never lose that sense of curiosity, that drive to innovate, that willingness to embrace the unknown.
So as we close out this episode of Wealth of Words, we want to leave you with a thought-provoking question to ponder. We've talked about Bezos's bold bets like launching AWS and the Kindle, but what's your bold bet for the future? What's that one thing you've been dreaming of doing, that idea that keeps you up at night but you haven't quite had the courage to pursue?
Don't let it stay just a dream. Take a page from Bezos's book, embrace the day one mindset, and start taking steps to bring that vision to life.
And hey, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your bold bets with us on social media, tag us in your posts. Let's keep this conversation going.
Thanks so much for joining us on this journey through the wisdom of Jeff Bezos. We hope you found it insightful, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit challenging.
And if you enjoyed this episode of Wealth of Words, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, leave a review, tell a friend. The more the merrier in our little book club of the airwaves.
Until next time, keep those pages turning and those minds expanding.
This is Richard.
And Isabella signing off.